Hey, BCista here, and welcome to week 4 of the WDC. This video is a little bit late, so sorry about that. So it's going to be, released notably later into week 5 of the WDC. But currently we are 3-0, and we're playing against the Midland Marowaks for this match. So their team is really powerful overall. They have a lot of good offensive threats that also have a wide variety of coverages that make it really hard to have a single good defensive typing, and Mammoth Swine, Moltres, and Gouging Fire. In addition, they have some very powerful support mons and Electabuzz with Follow Me and being incredibly bulky, Klefki with double screens, with Prankster, and then Blastoise with Fake Out like Icy Wind. And then they also have a lot of ways to set up, including Como with like Iron Defense or Bulk Up, or some of its other ones. You get Moltres with Nasty Plot or Berserk, Dragon Dance from Gouging Fire, and then also even Contrary Superior. And so a lot of like really difficult things kind of deal with that. In addition, they have a lot of fairly fast mons, which also is a little bit tricky because a lot of my faster mons don't really deal that well with some of their faster threats. And so this is what I ended up bringing. So I decided to go with Assault Best Okidogi. I felt like Okidogi was pretty good offensively into a lot of their threats, because fighting coverage dealt with the Mammoth Swine pretty well. Ground coverage dealt with the Gouging Fire. And then Brick Break helps deal with the screens from Klefki. And then, Poison Jab with Toxic Chain has a good chance of dealing poisoning your opponent. And then the Water Terror in order to deal with the Mammoth Swine a little better defensively, and also deal with the Gouging Fire a little better defensively. Next up, we have Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt, we have Terra Fairy in order to take the Dragon coverage a little bit better, and the Ice coverage. The idea with Boost Energy, we get the special attack boost. Thunderbolt should one-shot Moltres. Draco Meteor should one-shot at Mammoth Swine, and a Gouging Fire. And then other than that, just, pretty good, neutral damage to everything else. And we have Thunderclap in order to deal with them being faster, or, and then also, kind of just to get a nice, like, in-game situation. Next up, we have Arcanine Hisui. Arcanine Hisui is Choice Band with Rockhead. The idea behind this is that Rock and Fire coverage, it's pretty much everything on their team, outside of Como. And we have the Terra Fairy Terra Blast in order to hit Como specifically. Choice Band Rock or Head Smash has a good chance to one-shot Como. Has a good chance to one-shot Moltres. A Flare Blitz should one-shot Mammoth Swine, and it should one-shot Klefki. Those are kind of the ideas with that. I decided to go Rockhead. I actually ended up having 2 of my 3 Intimidators end up not bringing Intimidate this week because they only have 2 physically leaning mons in Mammoth Swine and Gouging Fire. And Mammoth Swine has Oblivious, so it can be immune to Intimidate. And I'm expecting Gouging Fire to probably be their amulet, meaning that I'm likely not going to be able to intimidate anything. And so that's kind of the idea between that. And additionally, Rock's Head should just make Head Smash and Flare Blitz a little safer. Next up, we have Gliscor. Ground coverage overall is really good. I think Moltres are the only ground resist on their team. And we have, Dual Wing Beat to kind of cover the rest. Dual Wing Beat also helps hit Como a little bit better. We have Tailwind to help outspeed some of their faster bonds, and then Sword Stance just to get a little bit of extra damage. With the Yachi Berry, we should be guaranteed to survive any attack from Mammoth Swine, and there's a good chance that we should take 2 Ice Shards in addition to that. And we have the Terra Water specifically just to become fully resisted to the ice coverage and the possible water coverage. Next up, we have Granbull. Fairy is also another good typing. I think Klefki is their only resist into Fairy coverage, and so we just have Terra Fairy, Pixie Plate, Play Roughs, which hopefully do big chunks of damage. Brook Break to help deal with screens, and also to hit Klefki for neutral, and then Stomping Tantrum to hit, Klefki, but also mainly Terra Poison was the main idea. I strongly considered Helping Hand over Stomping Tantrum, but I decided with Stomping Tantrum to get a little bit more consistent damage. Then finally, we have Weird Deer. Once again, decided to go with Frisk instead of Intimidate because I don't think Intimidate's going to be that useful this week. We have Terry Fairy to help deal with the weakness from the dark coverage, and also, the random fairy coverage or dragon coverage from like Gouging Fire. With Trick Room in order to help deal with some of the speed inconsistencies, and then Psychic and Thunderbolt, which covers their team pretty much entirely. The only and I decided to go with Mirror because, like I said, they have a lot of setup moves this of possibilities. And so with that, that is our team, and let's get into the match. So here we are for the game. Looking at their team, they pretty much have more or less what I would expect. And most of the Terra types are pretty kind of standard. The big notable Terra type is that Gouging Fire is Terra Fire, meaning it doesn't lose its rock resist, and Moltres is Terra Ground, which is somewhat relevant in the fact that I can't cleanly do rock moves into it. However, with this kind of lead, I think that it seems pretty safe to just kind of go with my standard lead that I was thinking about, which was the Gliscor Arcanine. I feel like Choice Band Arcanine could do a lot of damage, and pretty much there's not much it has the ability to kind of deal with everything on the field once I Terra. And then in the back, I considered a couple mons. I decided to go on with Raging Bolt and Okie Dokie. I considered the Weird Deer, but if I'm going to set up Tailwind, which is kind of the plan with the Gliscor lead, Granbull's definitely a little awkward. And similarly with Weird Deer, I think Weird Deer definitely could possibly be better than one of these two, especially given the fact that I am bringing 3 ground weaknesses, which could make Mamoswine or Terra Blast, Terra Ground Moltres a little better. But I think these are kind of just the best, most consistent mons. And with that, let's get into the game. So my opponent ends up leading Gouging Fire Electabuzz, and this is one of the big reasons I wanted to lead Arcanine, because I think Rock Slide here is really powerful. In addition to that, this is one of the reasons I have Rock Slide on my team. I originally had Extreme Speed, but I really liked Rock Slide in this exact lead. And the big question is, do I want to Terra Fairy or not? The big reason to Terra Fairy is Gouging Fire could have a ground move. And if they do have a ground move, then it could be really awkward. And so I decided to just go with the Terra Fairy to be safe. This also plays around something like a Breaking Swipe, preventing me, or like trying to lure my attack as well. So they end up going for Follow Me, which is really good because I just went for a Rock Slide. And I end up revealing that I'm faster than Gouging Fire, which means they have pretty much no speed investment on their Gouging Fire since I have very little on my own. However, the Rock Slide here we see ends up doing a very big chunk of damage. Is clean 2-hit KO on Gouging Fire, and as I mentioned, they cannot tear out of that weakness, so it's going to be pretty much dead if I connect it. And with the Tailwind setting up and Gouging Fire just going for Dragonite, I should outspeed again, and I have a pretty clean double knockout if I just go for the high horsepower Rock Slide again, in which the high horsepower goes into the Electabuzz. So they go for the Burning Bulwark, protecting so that I can't kill them, and this, makes sense. However, with the high horsepower, if I connect this Rock Slide, I kill the Electabuzz and don't really lose anything. And we see that we do, in fact, connect and kill the Electabuzz, meaning that we're in pretty good shape. So they bring out Mamoswine. Definitely a little bit sorry about this bad video quality. I don't know what's going on here, but here I feel pretty good. Rock Slide has a pretty good chance to kill, the Gouging Fire, and then we can go for the high horsepower into the Mamoswine, try to get the kill on Mamoswine. They end up going for the Terra Dragon on the Mamoswine so that I can't hit it with a Flare Blitz, I'm guessing. And they go for the Ice Shard, which helps, in which my Yachi Berry makes sure I don't survive. They reveal their Life Orb. We go for the high horsepower, and it does a little bit less than I would expect. The Rock Slide double connects, killing the Gouging Fire and bringing down the Mamoswine really low. However, that was even a crit. Mamoswine survived that, showing that Mamoswine is actually quite bulky as well. And they reveal their last mon is Como-O, which Como-O is not too bad. They have already used their Terra, so I have a pretty clean dual wing beat into that attack. I definitely feel like there's some awkward positions here that could occur, and so I decided to switch out so I don't die to another Ice Shard with Mamoswine, hope to kill the Mamoswine with another Rock Slide. I could see an argument for a double switch out because Arcanine locked into Terra Blast later on in game could definitely make this guaranteed, but I decided to just switch out the one to try to kill the Mamoswine. And they just go for a Protect. and the Rock Slide connects the Komodo, doing honestly not bad damage for being resisted, and we end up getting a lucky flinch there. That was the last turn of Tailwind, so now we're going to be a little bit slower, but I think we're pretty safe to just now go for Poison Jab at Komodo, try to get a poison, and 50% chance to get a poison, and we go for the Rock Slide. I decided to double up on the Mamoswine. Arcanine's faster, meaning that if Arcanine connects, I should kill it, and if I miss, I'd like to make sure Mamoswine dies. However, Mamoswine actually just kills itself with the Ice Shard because it is Life Orb, and so the fact that I doubled up that spot ended up not mattering. And they go for a Draco Meteor, which I take pretty comfortably because I'm Assault Vest. It does maybe a quarter. And so here we can just get a little bit more damage with the Rock Slide. Now that's single target. We get the Poison Jab off. 50% chance to poison. We end up poisoning. And now this game is completely over. It's basically just going to depend on whether Arcanine or Okidoki is going to get the kill here. And so we just go for the double up again with the Poison Jab and the Rock Slide. And with this, we're going to be in a pretty good position where we get a clean 4-0 in game one. So really good start, and also relevant knowing that the Como is pretty fast. But with that, let's go to game two. So here for game two. So I'm kind of thinking of how they are going to try to switch up. I'm expecting them probably to either bring some sort of speed control, or possibly kind of a way to be a little bit more threatening offensively. And so I decided to go with the Weird Ear to possibly kind of adjust possibly like Tailwinds from Moltres or like Electro Webs from the Electabuzz, and lead into my Trick Room Pokemon and Granbull and Raging Bolt. I'm not sure if this was completely necessary. I think possibly just leading the same two would have been fine. However, I did want to test out Weird Ear because I feel like Weird Ear could have been pretty good into some of these mons. And so let's get into the game. So they lead Klefki Moltres, and I leave the Arcanine Weird Ear. And so here, the play I want to do is set up Trick Room. We see that they're Cobra Cloak on the Klefki and Citrus Berry on the Moltres, meaning Moltres is probably pretty bulky. The big question is am I expecting them to Terra? And I do expect them to Terra. They're Terra Ground on Moltres. And so the big question is do they have Terra Blast or not? If they have Terra Blast, I 100% need a Terra. And if they don't, I don't. And I decided to not go for the Terra, which I think is probably a misplay. I think I probably should have Terra'd here. And I ended up just going for the Flare Blast and the Klefki, trying to get some damage and just going for the Trick Room. I definitely think that could be a little bit bad because there's no reason for it to be Terra Rock or Ground, honestly, unless they have Terra Blast. And they do, in fact, Terra on turn one, which makes sense since Head Smash would one-shot it. And they go get the Reflect up, and they end up revealing that they are in fact Terra Blast, meaning Arcanine's going to die, and this was completely avoidable if I just Terra'd. So definitely really sad because I lose my best offensive threat for this game on turn one, in which it was obvious Terra because the only reason they're Terra Ground is they have Terra Blast. So completely a dumb decision on my side, possibly a game losing decision. And so the big question is, do I want to try to bring out Granbull or Raging Bolt? I decided to bring out Granbull because I'm interested in trying to break the screens with Brick Break. We get the Intimidate off, which does nothing in front of these two special attackers. However, like I said, the idea is, hopefully get a little bit of damage, get rid of the screens, and then this double up could hopefully do a pretty good chunk of damage of breaking through the light screen and the reflect, and then getting a Psychic off. However, they end up protecting the Moltres, wasting my first turn of Trick Room, and they get up light screen, which is more or less what I was expecting the light screen to go up. However, sadly, like I said, they take this. Also, we're definitely in this little awkward position where like Granville ends up being a little bit awkward here. I definitely wished it was Okidoki, in which I could like tear out of its ground weakness. But here, there's not much to do other than just do that double up again. We break through double screens, which does okay damage, but hopefully now we're just going to do a little bit more damage with that Psychic. And we see that we get a pretty good chunk of damage with the Psychic just over, in which we just do it to where Jessica falls below 50%. However, they are Citrus Berry, and so they get the Citrus Berry back up to pretty good health HP. However, because they activated the Berserk, I get a special attack boost, which is pretty good for me in this aspect. And they just go for a Dazzling Gleam and get a crit on Gramble, which is really annoying. And they go for a Fiery Wrath, which also does massive damage to Weirdeer, making Weirdeer probably in range of dying to a Dazzling Gleam. This was definitely another situation where I definitely feel like I could have Terra'd my Weirdeer to just make sure I take this a little better. And my decision not to do that was pretty awkward. I decided to just double up into the Klefki because I'm expecting it to protect on the Moltres, and I do in fact read that double up. However, the Dazzling Gleam does in fact kill the Weirdeer, in which if I Terra'd the previous turn, my Weirdeer would be alive, and I feel like I'd be in a lot better position. But now I just have my, these two Mon in which the Gramble is really low HP. In really bad shape because they have two Pokemon in the back, and so I can Helping Hand Draco try to kill that Moltres since they're just protected. I can go for a Brick Break and Draco into that, or I can just like play rough into Moltres, Thunderbolt, try to kill the Klefki. And I don't know, honestly, the best decision here. It's definitely a hard call. And I definitely don't think the call is definitely not to Terra the Granbull here. So it's, the big question is, do I want to double attack or Helping Hand attack? And I could see really the argument of either is kind of just depending on if Klefki's going to attack or not. And I expect, and I decide to Draco into the Moltres and Brick Break into the Klefki. I think, honestly speaking, I probably should have doubled up into that Moltres spot in case I don't kill with the Draco Meteor. However, the issue being is that Gramble is faster in Trick Room, so that the double up is not going to necessarily be optimal. And we end up just missing out on that Brick Break, which is super sad. Back there, or screens there, and we luckily end up killing the Moltres with the Draco Meteor. However, now we're at -2 special attack, which puts us in a very precarious position with their two other Pokemon in the back. So they end up having Gouging Fire, which is not the worst position because Draco is going to do a huge chunk of damage into this Gouging Fire. And they end up just going for a Burning Bulwark, which is definitely a little sad, but there's not much like I could have really done there. They set up Light Scream, and the Draco ends up getting blocked by the Protect. And so here I just decided to go for Draco again. Even though I'm at -2, this is going to do a very good chunk of damage. And they end up revealing Key Trash as their attack, which does really little damage, which is great. They actually, if that is their only offensive move, I feel very good, especially with how much damage that Draco Meteor does. And they just end up going for a Dazzling Gleam. So here I'm going to read the Protect from Gouging Fire here and just kill the Klefki, and which they do in fact protect the Gouging Fire. And so with this, we were able to kill the Klefki. I don't know if this is honestly the best call because if they just bring out Mamoswine, I'm pretty much dead. However, if they have something that's not Mamoswine, maybe I have a chance. And they reveal the last one as Electabuzz, which is good in the fact that it's not super good offensively. And to me, it's bad in the fact that just follow me. I have no way to kill this thing. It's going to take like 4 Draco Meters to kill it unless I get a crit here. And they go for a follow me and, get a Dragon Dance off to get a little bit extra damage, which is not the end of the world because Heat Crash seems like their only offensive movement to me, and that does really little damage. However, like I said, the big thing is that Draco Meteor's going to do no damage to his Electabuzz, and I get a crit. This is a massive crit because, like I said, that's probably would have been 3 to 4 attacks to kill Electabuzz instead of get one hit of KO. And now I'm at -6. So here I go for a Draco into them. However, I was not counting the number of turns of Light Screen, and so this Draco does pretty good chunk of damage, and it's definitely going to kill with another, but that Heat Crash looks like it is, and that was the last turn of Light Screen. So that was a massive misplay on my side. If I was paying attention to the number of Light Screen turns, I definitely should have protected, and then this Draco without Light Screen would have killed because I end up losing with his Heat Crash. Honestly, I was kind of in that mental mindset where I'm like, oh man, I'm lost. And then that crit gave me a lot of life in which I didn't really mentally recover to the position where I check the status of the board game, because, like I said, if I protected that previous turn and light screen went down, I actually would have won that game. So definitely really sad that I was given this obscenely lucky position in which I kind of just gave it away for no reason. However, hopefully we can get there with game 3. So here for game 3. So long story short, Terra Ground Moltres looked really concerning for me, so I want to bring in my ground resist, which is Gliscor in the situation. And I think Arcanine would have been incredibly important last game if I would have actually been able to get an attack off. And so I want to bring it again. And then the big question is do I want Raging Bolt Okidogi or Raging Bolt and something else? I decided Okidogi, even though I'm not 100% convinced, because I'm a little bit concerned of having 3 ground weaknesses again. So I ended up leading Moltres Electabuzz, which makes sense since Moltres did a lot of work. And here we just bring in the Arcanine and the Gliscor. So definitely I'm going to Terra turn 1 to make sure I don't get killed by a Terra Blast. The big question is, do I want to Flare Blitz or Terra Blast? So the plus side of Terra Blast is that if they follow me with Electabuzz, I have no chance of being hit with static because it does not make physical contacts. The plus side of Flare Blitz, obviously, is I do a lot more damage. I decided to go for the Terra Blast and just go for the Tailwind to get some speed control. I consider going for like a Swords Dance, but I do know that Moltres is faster than Arcanine, which means there's a good chance it's faster than my Gliscor as well, so Tailwind just makes sense. So they end up Terraing Moltres, which is more or less expected, and I end up Terraing my Arcanine, which, at this point should probably have been expected. And they end up going for the Terra Blast into the Arcanine, which is more or less what we'd expect. And it ends up doing not good damage at all. I take that really comfortably and shows kind of just how good of a position I would have been game 2 if I would have just Terra'd on turn 1. And we get Tailwind up. Even though we get the speed drop, we should outspeed the next turn with the Arcanine, and we end up just going for the Terra Blast, and we see that it does a really good chunk of damage because we crit. Sadly, if we would have went for the Flare Blitz, we actually would have just got the 1-hit KO. With that crit, I don't think we would have killed without the crit, but yeah, that was definitely the idea. However, definitely a little bit sad that we didn't get the one shot because we didn't do it. So here I considered going for a Swords Dance to play around a Protect. However, I decided I just want to go damage and go for the high horsepower into the Electabuzz and the Terra Blast into the Moltres. I considered, going for the double up into the Electabuzz because they have the ability to protect like this. And we end up missing this high horsepower, which is massive since it's a 2-hit KO. Missing the 95% accurate was really bad, and we end up, doing nothing this turn, and they just get into position where now my Arcanine is going to be slower than the Moltres, which is really bad. So here, there's not much to do other than just try to kill the Moltres with the Terra Blast and then try to get some damage into this Electabuzz with high horsepower. We're in the position where if we would have connected with high horsepower last time, we would kill Electabuzz with this. However, now we get in a position where we do not kill Electabuzz with this high horsepower because and in addition to that, we get a static proc, which is devastating. And on the top of that, I would get a little bit flustered here because I honestly did not know that ground mons could be hit with static, and I get the crit on top of that. I definitely thought static was only procced on non-ground mons. However, we do get we also just barely miss out on this Electabuzz kill, which is really bad as well. And now we're kind of in this terrible position. So here, and on top of that, we would not even be in that terrible position if I wasn't paralyzed with this Gliscor. But yeah, this is like such a bad situation in which, if we didn't get hit by the, if we didn't miss that 95% accurate high horsepower earlier, and if we didn't get stacked, I'd feel like I was in okay position. But now I feel like we're in a really bad position. And so I decided to switch in the Okidogi because I'm expecting them to go for a Fiery Wrath again. They do, in fact, go for the Fiery Wrath, which kills Gliscor, which also wouldn't have killed Gliscor here if they didn't get the crit with the Fiery Wrath. So definitely doing bad here because I had a couple questionable decisions that also led to like some some awkward situations here, and I'm definitely not in the best mental state at this point during the game because of some of the bad luck and some of the like kind of misreads here. So bring out the Raging Bolt because Arcanine's not going to outspeed these, and I think it could be relevant at possibly dealing with like a Como in the back later. And so here we just need to kill this Moltres desperately at this point. Sadly, we've already used our Terror, so all we can really do is just go for a Poison Jab, try to kill Electabuzz, and then go for the Draco and try to kill the Moltres. I should take this Terra Blast, but aren't either of them because both my mons are pretty bulky. They end up going into the Raging Bolt, which does a huge chunk of damage. However, it's not the end of the world, and because I am hopefully able to get a double knockout here. And we end up hitting this Draco Meteor off and killing the Moltres, and so getting the double knockout. So there's a chance, depending on what's in the back. I'm desperately hoping they have something like Klefki in the back to, because if they have Mamoswine, I'm in really bad shape because both of these mons cannot take ground coverage particularly well at this point. They end up revealing to have Mamoswine in the back, which is really bad, and they also have the Como. And I'm definitely feeling not great. The Arcanine might be able to deal with Como depending on its coverage if their coverage is only Dragon fighting. And so I decided to go for the double up trying to kill the Mamoswine. I considered the Protect to, to just kind of guarantee I survive the turn. But I decided to just go for the double up, try to get that read and kill the Mamoswine. They end up protecting the Mamoswine, which definitely almost certainly locks the game up. If I would have doubled up into the Como, I might have had a chance, especially since they just go for a coaching here. But now at +1 defense and +1 attack, Mamoswine is looking very hard to deal with. Especially since I kind of wasted my entire turn because of their Protect. And so here, once again, I still think that if I can somehow kill this Mamoswine, I have a good chance of actually being able to win with Arcanine dealing with Como on the one-on-one. They end up going for Draco Meteor connecting and killing the Raging Bolt. I definitely feel a little sad, especially with the fact that I feel like this game definitely could have been won with a little bit cleaner playing. We see the Brick Break, which does not bad damage, but definitely less than I needed to, as they hit me with the high horsepower and getting the kill on Okidoki. And now we're just kind of in this awkward position where it is Arcanine versus Mamoswine and Como, and so we just bring out the Arcanine. So here, I'm definitely feeling pretty bad. I think the game is probably lost. I think the correct play is probably just go for the Terra Blast into Como, try to kill the Como, and hope that they do something like Protect with the Mamoswine. They end up not protecting the Mamoswine. They go for the double priority, which ends up getting the kill onto the Arcanine. Honestly, I think, this game was a lot closer and I definitely feel a little bit sad about this. I definitely feel like I could have won, in which, like I said, missing that 95% accurate high horsepower was really big. I think locking into Terra Blast ended up hurting me notably on the beginning, and game 2, not Terrying on turn 1. I definitely lost me that game on turn 1. Overall, my opponent prepped a little better than, in things I didn't prep for, but I definitely feel like I had the tools I needed to, and I kind of just played poorly. I threw away game 2 multiple different times, and then game 3, I kind of had a little bit of bad luck and then ended up making some questionable plays because I was a little bit flustered from probably, the bad luck there. So now we're at 3-1, and hopefully we can, finish up the rest of the season doing pretty well. But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.